YouTube. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us. My name is Floyd Marshall, and welcome to a conversation with, and I am joined by the thespian Benmio. Now, how do you pronounce your last
B
name?
Mcrae.
Mcrae. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Yes, because I was not sure because when I looked at the spelling, I was saying to myself, now, are you pronouncing it with the EA or do you just say Mcrae? So I wasn't sure. I definitely wanted
It's
to check.
Mcrae. There's so many variations of the spelling of that last name, um, but it's Mcrae.
Oh, well, awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, I am joined by the thespian, Benmio McCrea, who is actually a Philadelphian himself. So,
Born and
Philly's in the
bred.
house. So that is a beautiful thing. So, Benmio, welcome to a conversation with Sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm excellent. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm glad you're here. So, born and raised in Philadelphia, how did this acting thing start for you? Let's go back. How did this all start for you?
I got the bug so early as a youngster. Um, my sister and I, well, in grade school, we used to do shows like door to door. We would sing songs. You just literally knock on your door, say you want a show, you get a whole show for 50 cents, we give you half a show for a quarter. Um, yeah, we were enterprising. I actually had all kinds of money making schemes back then. I was like shoveling snow and cutting grass and all that thing. But anyway, I had the bug. We were kind of hammy as kids. In our synagogue, we used to do Purim plays, and they would take songs like Broadway musical songs, and they would change all the lyrics to tell the story of Purim. And so that was like our first experience on stage, and then it just kind of grew from there.
Mhm,
You
mhm.
know, I ended up going to Kappa in Philly, Performing Arts High School, and that was just amazing. It was a great education and an orientation into the business. And so, we've been at it. Well, I've been at it because my sister's not doing it now, but I've been at it, really since high school. So a long time.
Okay. So I need to go back for a second because again, we're live and this is also being taped. So when people watch this, you said something, and I know that's going to probably throw some people off. You said synagogue.
Yes, yes. I'm
Talk.
Jewish. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So my mother's side of the family is Austrian Romanian, Ashkenazi Jew. Uh, I guess from the third grade on, we were kind of going to synagogue, going to Sunday school, Hebrew school, and all that. And so, yeah, it's been interesting, enlightening. Um, there's been lots of different experiences out of that. But
Mhm.
going to Hebrew school with and studying actual Hebrew um, was cool. I don't speak it, but I took classes long enough to have my bar mitzvah and say the prayers and all that. So I still go to synagogue mostly on high holy days. We were raised as Reform Jews, which is the least strict of the um, sects, and it was a great grounding um, upbringing for us because we grew up in well, I want to say West Philly initially, and it was pretty rough. Um, Running home from school, and there was violence and all kinds of things going on in our childhood. That
Mhm.
once we moved to Fern Rock, which is the last stop of the Broad Street line
Yes.
going north, which at that time was, I'm not going to say it was suburban because it was hardly suburban. It was still city, but it was much less. It was more integrated, I would say. back then. Um, and Philly is still kind of can be rough in certain areas depending on where you are, and um, you know, clashy.
Yeah.
Depending on what you know.
So what part of West Philadelphia did you grow up in?
Uh, 47th and Cedar.
Wow.
So like, this
I know
you know,
exactly where that is.
yeah,
I know
47th and
exactly where
Cedar.
you where that is.
Yeah,
Okay.
we were there for a time. Actually, um, but for the grace of God, we had a serial killer as a landlord. Gary Heidnick was our landlord.
Wow.
Um, and,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, this crazy story. And things happened in our apartment. We think he robbed us and all kinds of things, but lots of things happened in that apartment. We That was the moment before we moved to Fern Rock.
Oh,
So
wow.
all these things were happening in West Philly, having the crazy landlord. That was before he went off the rails and started killing people, but
Mm,
not by many years. So,
wow.
um, it wasn't long after we had moved that, yeah, he started his stuff.
Wow. So
Yeah,
you guys kind of just
just missed. Yeah, we missed.
wow.
You just missed the boat on that one,
Well,
or I
that
should say, we. Yeah,
that's a good boat to
yeah,
miss.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. So, okay, so wow, born in West Philadelphia, and I understand that both of your parents were in the arts as well. So you kind of had a foundation starting off.
I did. I had an appreciation for art. They were both my parents were visual artists. Um, my father. I never really knew my biological father
Mhm.
because he passed as a young person in his 30s from asthma. Um, but my parents weren't together at that time. They had been, I guess, separated. The pressures of interracial, relationships was pretty tough. And I was born in '62.
Ooh.
Um, and and it still can be challenging. But yeah, my dad earned a living as a sign painter. He had a very smooth hand, excellent lettering. Back in the day, they before they had machines to do it, they had craftsmen that did lettering by hand, and so he earned a living like that. And then my mother, they met when she was in art school at Moore College of Art, and my mom used to paint and do sculpture. So I always had a great appreciation for art. I dabbled
Mhm.
in it myself, took classes, used to go down to Elfrist Alley, uh, downtown, and sketch out the colonial buildings and stuff. And it was cool. I can't try to remember some of the other um, Fleischer. Maybe it was Fleischer Art Memorial. It's where I took class in Philly as a young person. Um, that was a place where if you didn't have a lot of money, a lot of people would go and take classes, and they had very good classes.
Hmm.
I don't know if they're still around, but um, that was yeah, that was before. I mean, before high school, when I was just had an interest in art. You know, I did art in school. In sixth grade, we had a really cool sculpture project where we had to do um, sculptures like the Eskimos, and you'd have to
Mhm.
use the same tools that the Eskimos use. So we made the
Wow.
hand tools, and then I made this polar bear that I still have.
Oh,
Um,
that's awesome.
yeah, so
That's awesome.
that was
So,
interesting. Studying indigenous cultures and their art forms and all that.
right. So let's go to high school because you went to a very famous um, high school in Philadelphia, the Creative and Performing Arts, and my baby sister graduated from there,
Awesome.
journalism, and then also the executive director of my film festival, who used to run everything on that particular end of it. She also graduated from Kappa. So I know quite a few people that graduated from Kappa. So how I guess with your both of your parents being in the arts and you having an interest in the art, that was just a natural progression for you to actually end up at Kappa. And you were in the first graduating class, correct?
I was. It was an interesting time back then because the school was very much experimental, as much as it was created to foster art education, it was also created to for desegregation. So before I transferred to Kappa, I was going to Northeast High School,
Mm.
and uh, and then you know, funnily enough, Northeast High School, I was still getting bused to go to Northeast High School from my neighborhood. But then when Kappa opened, I just wanted, I had such a desire to go there that I was like, oh, let's make this happen. And then had to basically take the train downtown every day.
Hmm.
So that was an adventure, for a young person to have to take the subway every day. Um, if you're in New York, that's a pretty commonplace, but I think in Philly, not so much.
So did you
And
actually have to audition to get in, or how did that work?
we we did. We had to write an essay. We had to audition with. I can't remember what my audition pieces were, but I think we had two monologues. Um, I don't know. I can't remember if we had a song or not, but we definitely had two monologues and and an essay at that time. Yeah, and
Okay.
I still think they have that some of that is the same. I was actually in Philly recently for at Kappa for a multi-class reunion called John on the Lawn,
Oh,
and that was pretty great. And it was my first time in the current facility, which is really remarkable. Um, you know, when we started out, we were in an office tower on the top floors of an office tower, and it literally had nothing. We had
mm,
um, a platform, like a folding platform for a stage, and we had like partitions for walls. It was pretty bare bones. And now they have like a really legitimate theater and amazing art studios and music studios. It's really great.
that's beautiful. And
It
it's
really
nice
is.
to see the transition from when you started to the progression of the school. And it's always interesting when you go back to the old stomping grounds and you're looking around. You're like, well, they didn't have this when I was here, but you know things change. But again, you were the first the first class, so I'm sure quite a bit has changed. So you go to Kappa, and what was that experience like for you? Being amongst, because I know how it is now, being amongst creatives. It's just different being around, and I'm just going to say this, regular folk. Um, Creatives just have that thing about them, and you always feel at home when you're amongst creatives. So to be able to experience that with teenagers, what was that like?
And it's a lot of high energy in the hallways. I mean, if you saw the movie Fame, it was very much like that. You know,
Mm,
um, Everybody in their particular disciplines, and all of the classes were rem- remarkable. The faculty was really great. Uh, the music classes. I was a drama major at first, and then I ended up taking a lot of dance, an equal amount of dance. The Diva Davis is a teacher who's still there teaching dance.
mm.
Uh, she's amazing. But as you know, there's so many musicians that have come out of Kappa. Boys to Men, Christian McBride, Questlove. I mean, on and on. That department has been pretty remarkable. Karen Molina White was in my class. Clayton Prince. Um,
Clayton's a good friend of
uh,
mine. Wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Clayton Prince. Yes.
So I mean, so many artists that just really good at what they do. The visual arts program, the painters that were there when I was there, they were, doing museum quality work. I mean, e- everyone, most everyone seemed to be producing at a high level and learning and developing their skills at a high level. So no matter what your discipline was, it was a great preparation if you wanted to go on and and do it as a career. Um, so I have to give thanks, to all of my teachers from high school to really, gave me the education that I needed to do what I needed to do. So, I went on from after Cap, I went to Syracuse. I also studied at Carnegie Mellon for a while in NYU. Um, but at the base of everything was my education at Kappa, and so um, my knowledge base, in terms of drama, humanities, the arts, art in general. We had art history. The humanities classes kind of covered, you know, uh, everything like art, architecture.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so we did get a pretty well-rounded education. Um, maybe not as uh, stringent on academics as
Mhm.
is more of, I think, more of a conservatory type setting in terms of your disciplines. But man, it was a great school. It was a great school.
But that's interesting. You say not so much academics, but I don't know about that
Well,
because
I don't.
well, are if we're talking academics in the traditional sense?
Yeah, on English,
Okay.
science, math. Um, I don't know if algebra and all those types of um, classes. I think were like certainly in Northeast High School. It was
Mhm.
they had a space. They had like a pre-space program and
Okay.
different things. So the the they were set up a little differently.
Okay.
So, but the arts part of our school is really what made it
Right.
special, made it unique and special.
Mhm.
I'm not saying because the journalism majors. I mean, it's not like they didn't have English class and all.
Right.
They had to learn how to. They had to learn how to
Yeah.
write, and write well. So we did have academics. It just wasn't as, I think, as high a focus at when I was there. I don't know what it's like now. It's probably, as I say, more developed. The
Okay.
school in general is more developed, so I wouldn't be surprised if the academics are as good as the arts education.
Okay. Now you said you ended up going to Syracuse, but before you got to Syracuse, there was almost a slight detour because, from my understanding, doing research, you were pretty good at clowning,
Yeah.
which I found really interesting. So how did that come about?
Well, that is interesting. When you're doing theater studies, uh, do a lot of body work, and you do some of the exercises, drama exercises involves mime, and so uh, as part of my drama classes, we were doing a lot of mime work, and it just kind of went from there. So my schoolmate, uh, Tony, I want to say Tony Luke, but at the time he wasn't Tony Luke. Tony Luke was Anthony Lucidanio. So Tony Lucidanio, uh, and I used to do a clown routine together, which was kind of a emerging between mime and clowning. And we were so good at the time we had an ad agency in Philly that came to the school and got us, and we ended up doing a presentation for like Melita coffee makers. It was
Hmm.
very random. But I remember, going to this ad agency and we had put together this whole act, presentation for Melita coffee makers, and so we were pretty heavily into it, and then so Ringling Brothers came to Philly looking for prospective clowns
Hmm.
to go to clown college, and I was like, wow, that would be kind of cool. So Tony and I both auditioned. I actually got a letter, an invitation to go, but then I ended up not going because I'd have to leave school early. I wouldn't have been able to graduate with my graduating class, and I was like, oh, I don't think I can. I got cold feet at the
Hmm.
last minute. I'd have to leave Philly, go to Florida. Can't remember if it was Sarasota. It was just seemed more than I wanted to, more than I wanted to bite off at the time. So I wanted to, explore my theater, my acting and dancing more so than clowning. But so it was something I really thought about, and it sounded really interesting. Who knows what that would have led to, you
Hmm.
know? Um, uh, because I mean, there's folks that actually study clowning. It's a part of their drama work.
Hmm.
So it's not like it would have been a total departure. It just would have been a different path. So
So how long was the program? Because you said you would have had to have left school. So how long was their program? Or was it an actual like a
it was actual
4 year?
college. I
Oh,
mean, it was
wow.
actual college. Yeah, it was a pipeline into the circus.
Hmm.
So I would think you once you go through it, then you end up working for Ringling Brothers and then being going around the country doing with the circus.
Wow. That's fascinating. So you
It would have
decide to
been.
not. Yeah, that's interesting. So you decide to not, and well, let's talk about that for a second. With your mom being in the arts, do you really think that she would have gone for you actually wanting to go to clown college?
I don't know. I think she would have. I mean, my mom is pretty open-minded.
Okay.
She was open to whatever I was interested in.
Okay.
So if I really wanted to go, I think she would have encouraged me to go.
Mhm.
But she's a Jewish parent. She would have been happy to see me as a doctor or lawyer. Oh,
Okay. And there's nothing
I
wrong
think
with wanting to see
my
your
grand
kids
my
thrive.
yeah, my grandparents would have been happy to see this was something more backable. You know,
More of a traditional
Traditional. Yeah,
role. Well, you know what?
yeah.
That's just not Jewish parents. That's parents, period. You want to be a what? An actor? You want to do what? You can make a living at this, ladies and gentlemen, but parents for
You
some
can.
odd reason, and we talk about this all the time, how there's always such pushback when young people or anyone for that matter says, well, I want to go into this particular business. Then it's, oh, you want to do that little acting thing, or you want to do this, or you want to do that. But you can make a phenomenal living doing this. It's a profession.
It
Well, you know
it
what? Let's
is.
talk about
I
that.
mean,
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that you get such pushback when people decide that that is the path that they're going to take, which is a path in the entertainment industry?
I think it's something that everyone can't necessarily understand. So, that's why arts education is so important, and you have teachers that can actually pass along an art form, and you have mentors. Mentors are important. So, interacting with people who have walked the path or have experience in areas that interest you. But parents in general don't necessarily have a lot of practical knowledge about lots of things. Um, they care for you and they want the best for you, right? And unless you're following in one of your parents' footsteps into a profession, then they're going to encourage you to the best that they can for what they know, right? So if you, I guess, explore things outside someone's purview, then they're along for the ride,
Yeah.
and so hopefully, you find the people that it makes me think of Fred Rogers, uh, and it's not necessarily related to the arts, but it's more of a safety thing. Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers would say, "Find the helpers." Like if you're a kid and you're in trouble, you find
Mhm.
find the helper, find the helpers. But you find the helpers. Find the people in your life or in your path that um, have experience or knowledge in the things that you want to explore, and and look for a good relationship with a good mentor.
Mm.
You know, um, I consider a lot of my teachers mentors along the way, and then through the different paths I've been on. I've had different mentors from time to time, and it's important because you can't see, you don't know what you don't know,
Right.
you know, um, and you can't necessarily always see for yourself what your own capabilities are.
Mhm.
So it helps when someone sees something and is able to help bring that out.
Very, very true. So you end up at Syracuse University. Why Syracuse? Why not NYU? Or was Syracuse
Um,
more of
I kind
a
of I
no, I'm
put
saying
my
was
all my eggs in a few baskets, and
okay.
Syracuse was a great school in that it was one of the conservatory type schools. It had an
Mhm.
excellent musical theater program. The acting program was great. They had Syracuse Stage, which is a highly respected Lord theater. Um, that's where I got my first professional experience on stage. Um, as a freshman, I got to do a Syracuse stage show. And then as a junior, I did a show called Tooth of Crime. It was a Sam Shepard play that um, went to off Broadway,
Hmm.
and that's how I got my equity card.
Oh,
So
nice.
Syracuse ended up being a really great place to go, and I had great classmates. Aaron Sorkin, the writer Aaron Sorkin, was a classmate. Vanessa Williams was a classmate. Like we were literally in dance tights together, in dance class together, in drama class together,
Oh,
you
wow.
know. So, they're my contemporaries. So Syracuse was cool in that it's a college town. There's not much else there, so you had a
Mm.
really good focus. Um, they had the Carrier Dome, so they had a great basketball program, a great football program. So it was a good mix of students. It was a really big school, but being in the drama department, it was kind of like small family within that big structure. And yeah, Syracuse was great. I saw Prince at the Carrier Dome.
Hmm.
Yeah, that was 1995 or something. I can't remember the 1999 tour, whatever
Oh,
that was.
wow.
Yeah, or Purple Rain tour. Yeah.
Oh, that was we didn't make that one. Oh boy. And we actually went and saw him, and then we were going to my wife and I, we were going to go see him again, but then unfortunately he passed away because when they announced that the tickets were going on sale, we said we don't care what they cost, we're going to see him and we're going to be down front where the sweat from his hair will hit our faces. That's how close we wanted to be. And then a couple of weeks later, they said he passed away, and we were like, "Well, wait a minute, somebody's playing a cruel sick joke, and we're not
Yeah,
really."
it was
But
sad.
unbelievable performer, unbelievable performer. So, and that tour, the 1999 tour, that was a phenomenal tour. So you got to see
It
that in
was.
college.
I got to see that, yeah, while I was in college, or immediately post college, because I graduated in '94,
Okay,
and I was still in Syracuse. I think when the show was there, but another great show in Syracuse, James Brown at the Jabberwocky, which was this really tiny club.
really?
Um, yeah, I mean, if you look it up, but I think he had just gotten out of jail or something. He was just getting back on tour and stuff, and
Okay.
he made a stop. Actually, I think it was the last show for that uh, venue, the
Oh, wow.
Jabberwocky. Jabberwocky is like was like an old famous small college club on par with, say, like the Bitter End or something in New York, or
Mhm.
small club like the Blue Note. Like, so it was really small, and so when he performed, I was working the night, and the band was staying in the hotel. I was working in a hotel at the time. It was one of my college jobs, and the bus driver for the tour bus driver for the band was like, "Come to the show after you get off or whatever. I'll get you in."
Mm.
So he got me in, and I got to hang out with them for a minute. And James Brown was literally on stage, and the stage was only like like a 3 foot high platform.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like really like small, like in the corner of this room. And I mean, I don't know, maybe 4 feet from him, 5 feet from him.
Wow.
It was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah,
Wow.
amazing.
And that was
Yeah.
probably just watching him, on videos, the type of energy that he had. So to
Oh yeah,
actually be 3 feet away from him.
and he didn't hold back. It was full on. You know, even for that small space, he was full on. So that was an experience I'll always remember.
So you know what? That's a good segue because you're a performer. You've done film, you've done television, and you've done theater. And again, researching you, one of the things that you talked about is the craft and being prepared and really knowing your craft. And to see someone like him performing at that type of venue where this man has sold out stadiums, and to see that the performance from the stadium to the Jabberwocky was consistent.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So what do you say, or what would you say to young actors that are just coming into this game, because now you have social media, so people don't think, well, I don't have to train as much, I don't have to, all I have to do is look good. What would you say to actors like that?
Well, if you want a long career, you know, uh, then it does require work and energy and consistency. Um, you can have a large following, and the business does take into account those things now, like social media, like how many followers you have and all that. And you can get cast off of that alone. But it's only it's gonna open doors. But if you want to stay in the room, if you want to stay in the conversation, you want to stay in the industry for a long time, then you have to bring a skill set with that opening. You know, so um, when you're first getting started, it's like, oh, you just want to get in the room, right? You want to be invited um, to participate. And so, you do that through doing good work, and you keep getting hired based on the work that you're doing. You know, so it's important to train. It's a, you can't just a surgeon doesn't pick up a scalpel and start cutting people. It takes practice. A musician doesn't just pick up a guitar and know how to play it. And so, uh, as an actor, you can't just think you can just start saying lines and that's all there is to it. There's, to be able to modulate a performance and be emotionally connected to a character, you have to go into that well of inside yourself and tap into the different parts of you know parts of yourself and bring that to the work. Um, so yeah, you as a young person getting started, you definitely want to train. You want to find a good class or a good coach, to work with, um, and consistently work on your craft. You I still take class, and most actors take class even after they've been doing it a long time because I may get hired to do certain things, but in terms of growth and stretching, in class, you're able to do things that you might not get booked for, or you might get booked at some other time for, but you want to work on building your repertoire, building your capabilities. So that's a lifetime process.
Hmm. So the business side, because again, reading and watching other interviews that you had done, one of the things that you spoke on was the business side of this business, which is something that so many creatives kind of leave by the wayside. And you spoke about if you had known a little bit more about the business side, that things might have been a little bit different for you. So can you talk about that? Because I'm a very big advocate of anyone in this space approaching it from the standpoint of a business.
Well, you have to think that, as an actor, you are the product, right? So, that's when they're booking you, they're booking your person, your artistry. You are the product. So, when you think about yourself as a product, or as something worth people paying, you know, money for a ticket or whatever to see you perform. Um, one, you have to kind of, I guess, bring some respect to that, so so that you have focus. Um, whether it's from the marketing aspect of it, you always have to you have to network, you have to build relationships. The business, and most any business is all built on relationships. Um, whether it's acting or anything, relationships are key. So um, you want to keep track of people who are doing what you want to do. It's good to build friendships with people that are doing what you want to do, so that you can kind of learn through osmosis. You want to have a circle of friends, and artists that you commiserate with, uh, and can learn from. So, one person will know something about one thing, or they'll get audition at a certain level for something, so that, say they go to network for a sitcom or something. You've never done that before.
Mhm.
Well, if you have a friend who's done that, then they're going to be able to demystify it for you.
Right.
You know, um, so there's a lot of that. So, uh, and then in terms of the business, reaching out to casting people, you need to find representation. Ultimately, if you're doing good work, agents will find you.
Mhm.
So again, that gets back to the craft and trying to get into productions, or work on projects, um, uh, and do solid work within those projects, so that, one, if you're doing good work, uh, your fellow actors or artists, whatever your discipline is, your fellow artists are going to notice it and talk about you, and recommend you. So, like, I've recommended other actors for things. Things will come up, and you'll get asked, like, "Oh, do you know anybody that either can do this, or looks X or Y?" All those kinds of things, and then, you'll be in a position to recommend people, and then your friends will be in position to recommend you. So if you're doing high level quality work, your contemporaries are going to notice it, and say something, but then ultimately, uh, you'll get noticed by an agent. Uh, and then, if you're doing grassroots, trying to get representation, you're gonna do mailings. You're gonna ask your uh, actor friends to introduce you to their agent, or open the door, that kind of thing. But uh, ultimately, you have to be kind of organized about how you go about things, and uh, treat it like a business. Um, it's good to have a goal in mind that you can work towards, uh, maybe an action plan. So, like, say, this quarter I'm going to work on finding representation,
Mhm.
or next quarter I'm going to work on, finding a play to be in, whatever it is. you know just like you have a business plan when you're opening a business,
Yes.
or starting a venture. It's good to have some sort of business or action plan for your artistic career, and go about that. It's the same. Somewhat of the same steps.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's important. I think, if you know I've taken a bunch of, business for actors classes over the years, um, and so the knowledge you get from that kind of thing is key. Is, can be very key,
Mhm.
because even the folks that look like they made it overnight, it wasn't overnight.
Mhm.
It wasn't, you know,
Yeah, like, what did Alicia Keys say? "It took me 10 years to be an overnight success."
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, no matter, sure you can ask any artist, from the time that they really, hit, they've already been at it for a long time,
Mhm.
you know, and that just gets back to, again, being true to your gift. Or James Baldwin said, what the only responsibility we have as artists is to, and I'm paraphrasing probably badly, is to do it. Is to
Mhm.
do whatever our art is, and I'm happy. I'm managed to stay active as much as I have over, over the years, and I'm still growing as an artist, as a person, and you know, it's good to wake up every day and like what you do.
Yeah. But you've done some pretty good stuff. This Is Us, which was one of my favorite shows. I mean, Criminal Minds. You've done Bosch, so you've done some really quality work on some really quality shows. So
Yeah,
the
and the
process of
Terminalist just came out. So
oh yeah, you know what? And actually, can you because I saw in a couple of articles that you said that certain things that you couldn't talk about because they were in the midst of being released. So are you able to talk about those projects now, or are some of them still kind of
to a degree, so Terminalist is out. Terminalist. Chris Pratt in the show is accused of killing his family. I play a homicide detective who's investigating that.
that looks
So I've
good?
seen it.
That looks good.
It's a great show. High energy, very well done. It's a great show. So if you haven't seen it or people haven't seen it, they should definitely check it out. I think they'll like it. So that's out. I have some work in Bullet Train, which is not out yet, and so
Okay.
I'm not going to say much about that, but that looks like it's going to be a hot movie with Brad Pitt, and that's going to be out, I think, August 5th. So coming up,
Okay. That looks
coming up.
hilarious. That looks hilarious.
Yeah,
Every time, what did we were just at the movies not too long ago. And the previews, and you know what? I love that type of comedy when it's just effortless. They're just basically having conversations, but the situation is dangerous, but it's just so funny because it's just something that you normally don't see. And the
yeah,
scene with him with the water bottle was, but I'm definitely
yeah. All
looking
of it. I mean,
looking forward.
you got a train full of assassins all trying to kill each other. I mean, it's like, you know,
Oh,
it's
so
pretty fun.
okay, so you're going to have to come back because I want to ask you some questions about that, but I'm going to respect the industry and the way it works. You can't ask questions now because it has not been released yet, folks. But the Terminalist, when I first saw the previews for that, I was like, "Oh shit, you can curse on this show." I was like, "Oh shit, that looks." You got some Born Identity going on there. You got some Jim Reacher. You got everything going on in that. So I'm
Oh,
definitely
totally.
looking forward to seeing that. But
Some great twists in that show.
oh, really?
Hmm.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
I'm gonna definitely have to carve out some time to watch that. But we're almost done. But I wanted to talk to you about your IP because you did a couple of short films that did some pretty nice stuff. So can
Yeah,
can you
yeah,
can you talk about those? Can you talk about those really quickly? Because I want because we talked about the business, and I
yeah.
think one of the most important aspects of the business is owning your own IP.
True that.
So
True that.
the films that you did,
Well, the last one was a family project. It was a short that premiered at Slam Dance,
mm,
and then ultimately we took it to Cannes. A micro short called Aquarium, which is kind of let's say a coming of age, but it's about a couple who are finding their way in life and end up going in different directions. And our kid Jordan wrote it and is in it, and then I directed and my wife produced.
mm,
So that was a family project. Uh, my first film was a short called Retribution, and that premiered on Showtime many years ago. But it was one of the first projects Wendell Pierce, the actor Wendell Pierce from The Wire,
yes,
was in. Um, and so I uh, had did that right out of NYU as a project, and that was great. in that it got a lot of great exposure and kind of oriented me to the production side of things. You know, it also got me some directing work in animation. I did some voice directing on Daria, the MTV series, and another series called Downtown, which was Emmy nominated. And it was interesting. i- I'd like to make a feature at some point.
Mhm.
It's kind of like one of my goals, and at some point, I'm sure I will. But yeah, having projects, side projects, being able to tap into your well of friends and fellow artists to work on things with you, when you, particularly if you're not working on something, it's great to create a project that can get you exposure or get you noticed or fulfill you creatively, because you might be get frustrated creatively. I know, um, when I did the first short, um, I won't say it was I did it out of frustration, but it was a that was kind of like a turning point for me from
Mhm.
like putting down the acting thing because it wasn't really popping off the way I was hoping. And then, you know, at that time there were so many young filmmakers coming out. It's like, oh, I think I could do that, And so I went to NYU to learn how to
Mm.
make a and then as soon as I kind of went through the program, then I was off and running, you know. Um, and so that was actually one of the key things in my development too as an artist, making that first short. I learned a lot from
Hmm.
that and made great relationships, and it opened doors for me to so many other things.
Hmm.
So yeah, ultimately, and you can see it, whether it's Issa Rae or so many other artists, creating vehicles for themselves. So that's another way that you can skin the cat. If you create um, either a sketch or a small series for yourself. Um, I think Issa started out with Awkward Black Girl, um, and that grew obviously into
Yeah.
a into a career. You have Abbott Elementary now.
Yes.
Um, she's from Philly. And if you have a good idea and you interact with the right people at the right time, then anything can happen. So yeah, if you're inclined to write, and it's interesting because a lot of actors do turn to writing,
Mhm.
and I think they have a good sense of um, drama from having worked as an actor. So I think maybe sometimes dialogue might come easier for actors. It seems like a natural progression, certain writers to come from the acting world. Um, yeah, so IP is important.
Yeah. And you know what? That was actually kind of the path that I followed when I started out acting, and then you get tired of waiting for that phone to ring. So you say, you know what? I'm going to do it myself. So then I started actually writing and making short films and plays and did a feature. And then I decided, well, you know what? I like this so much. I'm going to start a film festival. So it is a progression because you want to work and you're saying to yourself, well, if they're not calling me, how about I just call a bunch of my friends and we do it ourselves, which is
Totally.
so vital. So, quick question. Your wife, she is just so vivacious and so full of energy. Um,
She is. She is.
wow. I'm the yin to your yang. So,
Yeah. Well, my wife and her partner, they're starting a whiskey brand right now.
are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
Jackson Mccray.
Wow. So
Jackson
so when
Mccray whiskey.
Wow. So when does that drop?
Uh,
Or is it
the,
just in
there's a
the beginning stages?
there's a Kickstarter going on right now, so they can, I guess, Google Jackson Mccray. Um, so Jackson and Mcrae, McCrea whiskey, and it should pop up, I would think.
Okay. Ladies and
Um,
gentlemen, you heard that. Jackson McCray Whiskey Kickstarter. Please go and support. Please.
yeah, two black women. So it's a women-owned whiskey brand,
Wow.
whiskey made by women for women, but to be enjoyed by everyone, is what they
Okay.
say.
Okay.
Um,
Do you have a flyer? Because if you do, can you please email me that so I can post it on my social media platforms?
I
Please,
certainly shall. Yep,
please, please,
yep,
please.
yep.
And I definitely
So
plan on contributing and buying a bottle.
yes, so they're hoping that they'll be out in the fall.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
That's
that's
that
the
is
goal.
that is awesome. So your lovely wife has the whiskey going
And
on.
and then her main thing is love and relationship coaching, life
Oh,
coaching,
wow.
and acting. But
Really?
yeah, but her company, Love CEO Institute.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, that's another thing they can Google. Love CEO Institute.
Oh,
Mhm.
I'm going to have to interview your wife
Yes, yes.
because actually this show, when it initially started, um, was primarily to interview women of color in this space. But I
Mm,
decided to expand it because I said there are so many brothers out there with so many phenomenal things to say. I want to hear what they have to say as well. But it initially started off as a female driven podcast because being an avid podcast listener, when I would listen to podcasts, I just wasn't hearing anything. Um, Black women weren't being interviewed. So I said, well, you know what? I'm
okay.
not going to complain. I'm just going to create a podcast and interview some dope ass Black women. But I definitely have
Okay.
to have your wife on. So wow,
She has a podcast too.
what's the name of her podcast?
My Holistic Life,
Wow.
and her and then Shay Lee, and it's on all the platforms.
Mhm.
And holistic is spelled HOELISTIC.
Oh, wow.
Holistic. But it's a play on words because the HOE stands for happiness over everything.
Happiness over everything, ladies and gentlemen, not that other hoe you were thinking about, but
Exactly.
happiness. You had some people like, now, why was she created? She sounded like such a phenomenal woman, and she gonna have a podcast with hoe in the
Yeah,
name.
hello. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
happiness over everything. So, get your minds
yeah.
out the gutter. But
And those ladies be chopping it up.
that's
Yeah,
beautiful. That
yeah,
is.
chopping it up good.
So do you guys have anything planned in the future as far as filmmaking? Because I know you said you wanted to make a feature. Is that something that you guys are going to embark on together?
Uh, I don't know. I'm focused on the acting thing right now.
Okay.
I would love to make a feature. She may get there before me. She has a couple of scripts already that are ready to go. So we'll see. I don't know.
Okay.
It's possible.
Mm,
It's possible. We talk about doing stuff all the time, and so it's interesting. Um, Two totally different personalities. I think sometimes I drive her crazy, but ultimately, she says she's learned more patience from me. Um, but she's one who's kind of high energy, let's get it done kind of person, and I'm very patient. So
yes.
maybe sometimes too patient.
Yes. But you know what? You need that because I'm more of the mindset or the personality like your wife. And one of my business partners when I had my film festival was more along the lines of your personality. And I would be scaling the wall, but he kept my ass out of a lot of trouble
Yeah.
because when I would be ready to just forge ahead, he would be like, well, wait a minute, let's think that through for a second. And I would be like, well, let's go. He'd be like, well, Floyd, hold on for a second. Have you looked at each and every scenario? And then when you finally look, you say, you know what, you're absolutely right. So you know what, you need that balance. You need that
Yeah, it's
balance.
good to have partnerships are great,
Yeah.
because you can focus on whatever it is you're good at, and your partner can make up for it, and you know what you're not good at.
Yes.
So, or divide duties.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what's next?
What's next? Well, Bullet Train. That's next, and then beyond that, I'm just I'm out there, you know, creating projects, looking for projects, auditioning. So, but Bullet Train's the next thing, and I'm not sure what's going to drop after that
Mhm.
yet, but I'm sure there's something, and I certainly have lots to do in support of Jackson Mccray whiskey and the things that the missus is working on. My, I definitely have to help her out
That
in different ways.
as her husband, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to help her out. But
But
Benmio,
people can keep up with me on Benmio.com. So that's a good place to go to find out what's going on with me.
and that's awesome. And he has a lot. So if you didn't get enough from tonight, ladies and gentlemen, please just Google him because he has a plethora of articles, and I read them all. And he has another great interview. Oh my gosh, Love and Cocktails,
Ah,
the
that was
podcast.
fun. That was a fun one.
Yeah, loving cocktails. That was a
I,
great interview.
Anyway, yeah, shoot, I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, yeah. I try to do as much research and find out about people as much as possible, so I can kind of sound like I know what I'm talking about when I'm interviewing people. But this was absolutely phenomenal, and you're going to have to come back because we're gonna have to talk after Bullet Train releases and after I watch Terminal Effect, because again,
Terminalist.
Terminalist. I'm sorry, I'm talking about Terminal Effect, but
Yeah.
Terminalist, because that looks really good, and I'm excited to see what you're doing in it. But give them your website one more time, and please give them the name of the whiskey one more time and where they can go support one more time, please.
Okay. So my website, benmio.com. That's benmio.com. And then Jackson Mccray whiskey. Jackson, like like Michael Jackson. Jackson Mccray, MCCREA whiskey. And then if you want to go to my wife's website, Love CEO Institute.
Well, there you have it,
.com.
ladies dot com.
Yeah.
So again, Benmio, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure meeting you, and hopefully when I get back out to LA in March, we can actually sit
Yes.
down and yeah, because I was
Yeah.
there about 10 days ago for the Me Show Film Festival, which was
Ah,
absolutely amazing. So I'm actually coming back out in March for, I don't know if you know Cheryl Bedford, but she has an amazing organization, Women of Color Unite. So she's having an awards show. So I'll be out there for that. And then I'm coming back again in July because I'm coming back to the Me Show Film Festival. So
excellent.
yeah,
Excellent.
so
We'll have to catch up for sure.
absolutely.
I
But
love that.
sir, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to sit down and talk with me. I know my audience will appreciate it because we like to educate. We like to educate people on the real business of acting and just the business of entertainment
Yeah. Yeah.
from a
Well, I
black
appreciate.
perspective.
Yes, and I appreciate you having me on, and I look forward to catching up and doing it again.
All right, my brother. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day, and please give your best, my best, to your lovely wife.
I certainly shall.
All right, Bimio, take care.
All right, Floyd.
Peace.
Stay well.
All right, you as
Peace.
well.